Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Auntie Talks and Listens podcast, where I talk to everybody about a lot of things. And today I am joined by Beverly Lofton. Hey, Bev.
Hey, Tracy. Good to
Can you,
see you
you too, hon,
and talk to you. Mhm.
can you introduce yourselves to the audience?
I am Beverly. I used to say Beverly Fanning Lofton. I, sounds like the country girl I am who came from Arkansas. So, anyway, I'm Beverly Lofton, and I'm a seasoned girl, one of your friends, and I consider you one of my besties. And I love having you in my life and living here in California, living the good life and grateful. And just had a birthday, another trip around the sun.
Woohoo!
I've started on the next year's trip. I'm excited.
That's awesome. You know I want to be there.
You're coming right behind me, nipping. Yeah.
Yep. Well, hey, girl, our first episode of the podcast, we talked about our men and women at war with each other. And, child, that was hot and controversial. And
Mhm.
so today, considering that had so many things in it that were about the challenges that men and women are facing today I decided, in preparation for Valentine's Day, let's talk about love. And when I thought about that, I thought, who better to do that with than you, girlie, my longtime friend who has been married for, am I right, 44 years? Is that right?
It'll be 43 years on the
Okay.
30th, but you're
So
close enough. We've been
only
together for 40,
43.
we met 44 years ago. Yeah. So, yeah, same thing. Same thing.
That is awesome, girl. And so I know that you have got to know quite a bit about love and keeping love together and keeping love fresh and getting over when it's stale. And so I wanted to ask you to start the conversation with, what's your love language? Is it words of affirmation? Do you like James whispering sweet nothings in your ear? Is it acts of service? Do you like getting gifts? Who doesn't? A diamond, pearls, a new car, right? Is it quality time or is it physical touch?
I think mine is quality time.
Oh, that's
A lot of
mine.
times in all these years, I'll say, I'm telling you something, but wait, don't move, don't you move. I just want him to stay there long enough to just hear what I have to say. And I think it's quality time. And now I could cheat on that and say, that's why I like going on vacations because it's
Yeah.
quality time together and it's an escape away from your regular life.
Mhm.
Because, when you're in a house with somebody for 44 years, sometimes you're just like ships passing. You're
Yeah.
just doing your thing and you're going through the motion. And sometimes you just don't sit down, look at each other, talk, or just sit there and be together. But
Mhm.
ironically, we have found ways to do that more as we've gotten older
Mm.
uh, than we did. And, when you said that about knowing about 44 years of marriage and knowing about love, some days I say to myself, I'm as shocked as anybody else. Because it's not like I had some big secret, like I just know the deal. I just have it all figured out.
Mhm.
I'll look up and I'll go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it worked.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
actually worked, and we are here, and I like him, and I think he likes me. It's more than just loving him, because I love deeply, and
Mhm.
I can love you, but liking you enough to want to be with you all the time. That's a whole lot of days. And in fact, last year, James gave me something, and he wrote down how many days we had been together. Now,
Wow.
that's the engineer in him.
Wow.
Yeah, he put it by the the coffee maker, and I went in there, and he was like, "I've been with you this many thousand days," and I thought,
Wow.
oh my goodness." He's counting, but he didn't say it like, "Oh, I'm packing my bags and I'm running,"
Right.
but
Right. But
yeah,
that is seriously impressive that he thought to do that. So,
yeah.
I have to ask, what what's his love language? Is it words of affirmation? Is that why he would have gone there, or
and I'm thinking it's his way of showing love
Mhm,
because I think it's not hard to think about a man wanting physical touch. And
mhm,
physical touch, of course, is more than sexual intimacy.
mhm,
But we were talking about this over dinner last night, and it was kind of fun because you had posed the question,
mhm,
and he said, "Well, I think I want all of it sometimes because
mhm.
um, last year we were taking a trip, and he wrote me a note about I there's no one else I want to take this journey with and go on this trip with." And I thought, wow. And I felt like a little heel because I was like, I didn't write him a note.
Right, right.
I
I
didn't
was
write
gonna say, "Ooh, he's tough to keep up with." Right, right.
Oh, I didn't write him a note. But
Mhm,
the other things that I give him is, even about the physical touch, for example, if say physical touch I thought was his number one,
mhm,
the words of affirmation that I think mean something to him, I think means something to anybody. And I have said to people, even in marriages, um, I think people need to be affirmed and to
mhm,
feel appreciated.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I will have to admit to you, I don't think I started doing that till the last 20 and maybe even the last 10. And what I mean by that, thank you for dinner. If
Mhm,
he made the dinner, or you know what, because I used to take for granted, I'd walk out the door, my gas tank was full, my
mhm,
car was washed.
mhm,
And I think, especially in the profession he was in, he
mhm,
got a lot of applause, if you will, a
mhm,
lot of affirmation from outside people.
mhm,
So the immaturity in me told me I didn't need to affirm him anymore. Like,
mm,
he's getting all this in his job. He doesn't need it from me. I'm not
mhm,
his, cheerleader at home and got to go,
mhm.
woohoo, look at you.
So I heard you saying that, your husband, because of the line of work he was in, got a lot of affirmation, a lot of applause. Do you mind sharing with our listeners what kind of work your husband does?
Well, he was a pro football player for 16 years. So he had 16 years of stadiums of 50 to 100,000 people cheering, every time
I'm
you
going
do
to tell
something.
you that's tough to compete with.
Tough
That
to
has
compete
got to
with.
be tough to compete with,
And
right?
so, the tough to compete with, but tough to leave. Because
I
once
can't even
they
imagine.
Yeah,
I can't
because if you
imagine.
are used to, you do your job, so your job is, okay, to catch a ball for a touchdown, and then the whole stadium is losing
Mhm.
their minds over something you did, and you're at the peak of, even in the world of manly things,
Mhm.
you are, you're a guy, you're a jock, you do well, you're doing better than most people and the thousands of
Mhm.
people who have ever played.
Mhm.
And so there was this little tug of war, I think, that didn't understand. Uh, I wasn't competing with the fans.
Mhm.
I'm. It's
Mhm.
not a competition, but it was like I'm going to keep him grounded.
Mhm. Wow.
I would talk to
Wow.
my girlfriend. Right, we're trying to keep him grounded. I'm not. When he comes home, I'm not. I'm not wearing a little cheerleader outfit, acting like I'm
Right.
still his fan. He has to
Yeah.
help change these diapers and do this and this and this.
Yeah.
But I think I misunderstood
Mhm.
because it wasn't my being appreciative to just who he is and what he does in the relationship is separate from what he's doing
Mhm.
in his
Mhm.
job and on the field.
Mhm.
And not that I thought he needed to be knocked down a couple of notches or something,
Mhm. Mhm.
because it could be your own insecurities with yourself. Here I am
Mhm.
married to somebody who's considered a star, and
Mhm.
then you're just, there was a book one time called The Balcony People. And
Mhm.
I discovered early in our relationship, I was a balcony, or I'm the stadium person
Oh,
in the
wow.
relationship. And you can't be jealous of that. You can't be insecure about that. Um, I made a choice to be that, and I was really good at it. I was
Mhm.
really good at holding it down, if you will.
Mhm.
And I even see that now. I see a lot of young women wrestle with that because today, as opposed to 40 years ago. I run into so many of the new wives or younger wives, if you will, of pro sports, and they all have businesses, foundations, brands. You
Mhm.
know, they're spending a whole lot of time promoting themselves and promoting their
Mhm.
brands, and yay for them. I mean, good for
Mhm.
them. I'm
Mhm.
really happy to see these women doing it. And in fact, I'm getting ready to go do something Super Bowl week.
Mhm.
And they're asking, all of your social media and all of your brands and all of your foundations and all of those things. And through the years, I did millions of dollars of charity work, but it was
Mhm.
never about my name or my brand.
Mhm.
And things have
Mhm.
shifted, wouldn't you say, in the last decade?
Oh, absolutely, I would.
It's a
Absolutely, I would.
and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Um, there just isn't anything wrong with it. And so things have changed, as have relationships, but I still think that love is still fundamentally the same.
Yeah. I would
Yeah.
agree. I would
Hmm.
agree. And do
Hmm.
you mind, Beverly, your husband is James Lofton,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And James played for the Raiders.
He was
James,
drafted. He was a first round pick for Green Bay Packers. Then
okay.
he went to the LA Raiders
Okay.
and the Buffalo Bills
Okay.
and was selected into the Hall of Fame in 2003. So he had a beautiful, wonderful career.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I have to say, it's interesting listening to you talk about being a balconing or stadium person. Um, you know, I've been working on doing something this year that I am behind on doing for you, and that is to each of my close friends, I am sending them a text saying why I appreciate them as a friend.
Oh,
And I have to say, if I had to have a balconing or stadium person, I would want it to be you. You, you,
oh, thank
you
you.
you're welcome. You talk about how you were not going to be the cheerleader, but uh, one of the things I've always noticed about you, quietly noticed about you, is how you do give words of affirmation, not just to your friends, but to your husband. I can remember, you probably do not remember this. We went to see Elton John for a friend's birthday, and you, uh, either at intermission or between or after the show, made a quick phone call to your husband and said, "Oh my God, I've had such a good time. Thanks for making this possible for me." I can't imagine what that must feel like to a spouse to have someone call them with something as simple as that. It's got to make you feel special. It's got to make you feel loved.
I hope he does. Because, it's an interesting thing about him. He's never been the man that I had to ask to do something, ask if I could do something. But
Mhm.
because he never says anything and never, I'll hear people, and which probably cause a lot of fights among people, but like he won't let me go or I have to
Mhm.
ask if I can go. So
Mhm.
if I have a discussion with him about something that I'm going to do with girlfriends, it's not that I'm asking permission, but I'm
Mhm.
respecting the time that I'm away if he had something else in mind. But he has been a secure enough man that it's never been like, where are you going? And you're
Mhm.
going here with girls. The wonderful thing about being married to him is he has allowed me to have, and we've had some great girlfriend times. I mean,
Absolutely, we have, girl.
it is just probably, it's one of the most treasured things in my life. And I
Mhm.
feel bad for anybody who does not have that kind of
I hear
thing.
you. I
And,
hear you.
but I'm grateful to have a man who's secure enough to let me go, did you hear me?
Yeah.
To, to be okay with my
Mhm.
going and
Mhm.
not question me as if he's, not trusting me. I think a lot of people have that in their relationship where there isn't trust.
Mhm.
He never treated me like he was so worried that I was going to be out,
Mhm.
catching or trying to catch or trying to
Mhm.
do something.
Mhm.
Never was. And my mother even told me, one time that I was so blessed because she's from the South, and we grew up thinking, oh, way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And she said, oh my God, I watched him eat. And he
Mhm.
opened a can of green beans and heated it up in a pot and didn't put any seasoning. She said, I wanted to gag. She said, because I was not used to a man who didn't want you to be cooking, and you know how they'd say, "Oh, she can burn," or this.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
said, if you're not at home, if I, say I'd gone to the mall and I'm shopping, or I'd
Mhm.
gone somewhere else with friends, if I don't get back in time for dinner, he's not going to sit here and starve. He'll go find
Yeah,
something to eat. And
yeah.
I think that's what has made it work for us.
Mhm.
It's those little things. It's not
Yeah,
some big major thing, but it's the fact that he's not, you know, he doesn't
yeah.
keep tabs, and it
But that
kind of
speaks
works.
to you though too, Beverly. It
I
does,
I hope so.
Yeah,
I
it
grew up though,
does.
Tracy, I grew up with, well, James grew up with his father, a
Mhm,
military man, the
mhm.
youngest of four kids, and his mom put them on a plane when he was 7, and he didn't see his mom again till he was 19.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
there are tender moments with him that I look at the loss of love, um, for him. And
Yeah.
he doesn't talk about it much, but it was so bizarre. Um, there were times when I knew he needed to cry,
Mhm.
and I felt like he had probably cried a lot when he was a little boy.
Wow. Mhm,
But he was raised by his father, and I was raised by my mom. So
mhm,
the things that we were missing, that daddy's love, I didn't have that
mhm.
daddy's love or daddy's relationship. I had this vision of what daddy was supposed to be. And I think the same thing for James. And so here these two people come together with a little bit of imbalance, if you will,
Mhm, mhm,
in how to do a relationship that,
mhm.
our parents
Yeah,
didn't have it,
yeah.
and couldn't teach us very much. Some things to avoid, but for somehow it worked. And I think it worked because we both had a desire to have it. We
I
were.
was gonna say, so a couple things are striking me as we were sitting here talking. So, there's a lot of talk about men wanting to go back to a time of having submissive wives and women wanting, or some sort of, how shall I say, I don't want to say fringe, but smaller group of women who want to live a more traditional, shall I say, family life. And so a
Hmm.
couple of things struck me as you were talking. A lot of what you lived and described was more consistent with what would be traditional family roles, right? In
Hmm.
that your husband went out and was a breadwinner, and you took care of the home and the home fires and the family. And I know for a fact that you took care of extended family also. Um, and as you were saying earlier, while you raised millions of dollars for charity and did all those things and led all those things, then the focus was never really about it being on the woman, or like you
Hmm.
needed that also.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
we've evolved to this place now where, and I don't think it's bad, uh, and I do think that it is in many ways needed now, where women are wanting and trying to ensure that they get the same level, for lack of a better way to put it, of credit, of visibility.
Mm.
And, I look at you and James and I think a couple things. You didn't seem to need that. Was it that you didn't need it, or you just didn't have the time to go out seeking it?
I tell you what, if I don't have regrets that are those that I sit around licking my wounds.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to go back and think about my life, I kind of wish I had stayed in the workforce, but something
Mhm.
else would have been lost. And I say the reason I say it is not because of any particular thing that's happening with me, more so the friends I have,
Mhm.
some who did the same, followed the same path I did,
Mhm.
became stay at home wives and moms and, you know, just doing charity and doing
Mhm.
all these things, being his, in a traditional Christian family, they would call it a helpmate and all these kind of
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
I think that it would have been wiser of me to have kept part of my career, kept my foot out in the workforce a little
Mhm.
bit.
Mhm.
And so the way I look at it, Tracy, is not a regret, but what I say is kind of like, "Phew, I
Mhm.
didn't need it, but it could have been me,
Mhm.
not my girlfriend over there who was
Mhm.
married for 25 years and now she's working harder than she ever had. Not that she deserved to have to do that, but
Mhm.
now the marriage dissolved and it threw her in another
Mhm.
financial,
Mhm.
um, like a just struggle, right?
Absolutely.
And so there's that part of me that says, I'm not just I don't say I just got the lottery or I'm just lucky, but I am fortunate that statistically
Mhm.
it didn't
Mhm.
come back to bite me
Mhm.
because it could
Mhm.
have. I
Mhm.
I don't look at myself and say, "Oh, I did something special," because
Mhm.
I and you know beautiful
Mhm.
women who were married and gave it their all in a marriage,
Absolutely.
and for whatever reason, it didn't work out,
Mhm.
and then they got to be a certain age. Because I think that's the scary, most frightening part for a
Mhm.
girl in my era,
Mhm.
is to not have financial independence.
That's the most frightening, thing for a woman of any era, is to
Of
not
any
have,
era. Yes,
financial independence,
yes.
right?
And just add to it that you don't make what men make.
Absolutely.
First of all, you have all those things working against you.
Mhm.
So when I look back on it, how could I have done it? I don't
Mhm.
know. And I'll tell you what happened to me. When I met James, I had moved to California thinking I wanted to sing and act and
Mhm.
came out of Arkansas and starting this life. And I had an
And what did you
education.
do in Arkansas, though?
Well, in Arkansas, I'd been a news reporter, but I was educated in speech pathology, psychology, and
Mhm.
special ed. So I
Mhm.
was thinking, well, I'm going to California, starting
Mhm.
this new life. And here I was a pharmaceutical rep,
Mhm.
which was supposed to give me this time to pursue other things. And then
Right.
I met James, and in 4 months, I was moving to Wisconsin. So and my family was like, What? What in the world? You just loaded up your little Monte Carlo and and drove across country, and now within 8 months, you're moving back across country." And, I jumped, so things change. That's where I
Mhm.
was with him. Um, and so because of the profession he was in, he played in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Mhm.
I said to myself, I don't think I do long distance well. I might
Right.
just forget
Yeah.
about you and move on to some other things.
Right.
And so, and so Tracy, he really, I mean, he came with mad game. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that is we met New Year's Eve,
Mhm.
first date. He asked me out Valentine's Day, but I
Oh.
had plans with my neighbor in this apartment complex, and
Mhm.
we had both said if we're not dating, we'll go out with each other Valentine's Day. So I didn't want to do him like that, like,
Right,
oh,
right.
this hot item came along and I'm going
Right,
to go out.
right. I got a
So
better offer.
so I
Right.
said to James, I said I can go out the next night, and he took another girl to the Schubert Theater, but
Mhm.
to see a play, and we went out the next night,
Mm.
and he proposed March 7th.
Wow.
Uh huh. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And so, all of that it was pretty nuts. But what he did in May, the NFL had these mini camps, or now they call them OTFs, but they had mini camp where he'd go back for a 4-day mini camp in May.
Mhm.
And he had talked to, and I'd just gotten a promotion with Pfizer, my job. And he said, and I said, I have a company car with my job and just got a promotion. And he came back in May and said, I ordered you a car and I bought a house.
Wow.
So that
Y-
gift.
You know what though? He falls into that category of they say there are men who they instantly know, and he knew. He knew
He,
that
he,
he wanted
he said,
you.
well, he said he did. And it seemed crazy because I used to have little conversations with myself. Now, is this control? Because, two things can be true.
Yes,
Two
yes.
things can be true. And I thought, first of all, I'd never owned a home
Hmm.
and I had a company car. And I kept saying, I have a company car and my job and this and this and this. And so he was, because I was like, I don't know anything about your world, even though he had
Right.
proposed. I
Yeah.
said, are you talking about 6 weeks, 6 months, or a year? He goes, I don't know. I just want to marry you. He had
Wow.
no plan. He had no ring. Just,
Wow.
it was crazy.
Wow.
And we were
Wow.
supposed to get married on Valentine's Day the next year. We just said, well, we'll go somewhere like Lake Tahoe on Valentine's Day. So uh, unoriginal.
Right,
And,
right.
and so then he made the Pro Bowl in Hawaii. And
Hmm.
we were living in Wisconsin where you see what weather is like in the blizzard country.
Holy crap, yeah.
Yeah. So we arranged our wedding through the hotel and got married in Hawaii.
Wow.
Saw
Wow.
people in the lobby and said, do you want to come to our wedding tomorrow?
Wow. Well, I will tell you, as much as you're saying crazy, it really sounds like, to be honest, I call romantic comedies porno. And the reason why I say that is I think it's dangerous as hell because it sets women up for thinking that there's going to be music and fireworks and all these things and a horse and a knight. And in many ways, though, you and James kind of had a little rom com. I mean, it
You
was.
know, we did, but
Mhm.
the control. So when I had the little conversation about the control part, I go, did anybody tell him that I would have liked to have picked my first house?
Yeah, yeah.
But here's what works in our relationship. As much as I say that, and they have that phrase, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. I never
Hmm.
thought of it in the same way.
Hmm.
With him, I very seldom give back gifts. And I don't know what that is. There have been some gifts that weren't all hits.
Hmm.
And in that case, there was this thing of understanding that he wanted me with him.
Hmm.
He, his entire team, people were just shocked because he had left Green Bay in December unattached and living the bachelor life.
Hmm.
And he had beautiful women he was dating. I saw all these pictures and
Hmm.
even on his answer machine, he had me to leave the greeting and we're like, hi, this is Beverly and James.
Wow.
And we're giggling and you hear all these hangups.
Wow.
And he made it really, but but when I look at that, we didn't know what we were doing.
Hmm.
He also wanted love in the most way. I mean, we both did. And I had this weird feeling when I saw him after our first date. The second time I saw him, I had this weird feeling he was going to ask me to marry him. And I was hoping he would.
On your
So,
second date, you had
well,
that feeling?
February 15th was our first date. We went to a sun-kissed track meet, invitational track meet.
Okay.
I know in LA, and he went to see old college track buddies, and we had just like a 4 hour meal afterwards. He went on back to listen to this. Went on back to he was living in the Bay Area for off season. He wrote me a letter. I had a letter in the mail Tuesday. Thank
Wow.
you. He said, "Thank you. I would love to see you again."
Wow.
And I didn't know. The other thing is, I didn't know he played pro ball because when I met him at this New Year's Eve party in LA, there was music, and I heard him say he lived in Palo Alto, and I was like, he said something about Stanford, and I was like, oh gosh, she's a student. And I'm thinking, I'm this career woman. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be dating a
Sophisticated,
student.
right?
being a student, which means I'm gonna have to probably buy dinner. That's what I'm
Right,
thinking.
right.
I would have to take him out to
That's
eat.
hilarious.
He said, "When I come back to see my" now listen to this. He said, "I live in Palo Alto." He said something about he had gone to Stanford. And so I'm like, "Okay, he must be in college."
Mhm.
And when I come to visit my father, "Would you like to go to the theater or something?" And I was like, "Sure." And I just threw out my phone number. I didn't write it down or anything because I was like, "I don't know about this. This is
Right.
flaky." And he called me. He said, "Every time I've called you, your line is busy or you're not at home." Anyway, picked him up at his dad's house, and then I see the little professional Green Bay Packer helmet and
Oh, wow.
stuff.
Wow. Wow.
He had played 2 years and was like a rookie of the year, and
Wow.
I knew nothing. And so
Wow.
anyway, he invited me to come visit him. He said he had a house in San Jose. If I would like to come and visit, he would pay my way up there.
Mhm.
And back in the old PSA days, Southwest PSA
Right,
Airlines,
right.
I went on leap year. And
Oh, wow.
I picked up a yellow rose in the airport and I said, "Well, they say if I'm going to ask you to marry me, I better do it today."
Wow.
But you know what he did?
Hmm.
He bought me a watch. And I know, so gifts, so he does. Well, I don't know. He bought, and you know why? Because I was a very practical girl. Like I told you, I'm real
Mhm.
practical. I had a Timex
Mhm.
watch, and when I talked to him over the phone, I would always say, "Shoot, I forgot to wind my watch." And
Mhm.
so he bought me a quartz. You know, quartz was new in
Yes, yes,
1980.
yes, yeah.
People don't even know what I'm talking about. I didn't have to wind my watch, and he
Oh,
bought me
God,
a
I love
Seiko
it.
quartz watch
I
and
love
had
it.
it for me at the airport. I mean, that's kind of how this crazy romance, and you're right, it felt like a rom-com and it went fast. It swept me off my feet. And
Yeah.
so the other thing of that and the danger of that is we still had to do life. We
Yes.
still had to do difficulties. We
Yeah,
still deal with difficulties,
of course. You
and
still deal with
so
life.
we
You still
still
deal with
deal with
life.
life. And so
Yeah.
it feels good to talk about those stories because then I can remember what that felt like.
Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much. It really doesn't. And I hope that, in this time of approaching Valentine's Day, that, this $26 billion industry of Valentine's
Mm,
Day, that's what we
mm.
spent in 2023 on that day between gifts, cards, candy, going out. Um, I hope that people think about that simplicity, making sure that people feel loved and not just for that day.
Mhm.
But that you do the small things, James filling up your car, you calling him and saying, "Hey, I really appreciate that you helped make this possible for me today." I think those things go such a long way. And I also think, thinking back to you and James, you know, I I think there's something to be said for uh marriage is tough, relationships are tough.
Mhm.
But because I don't want to give this impression that because you guys had so many rom-com moments that it was all that. Just
Mm.
rom-com moments. And I think there's something to be said though for we're both just going to keep trying to do this. We
The
like each
work.
other.
Yeah, putting in the work, Tracy, because
Yeah.
it's funny because we were talking about Valentine's Day and you put in my mind and heart to think about all those beautiful times. It would be just as easy for me to be dwelling on the times that I felt like I'd been gutted,
Yes.
where I felt like we are not going to make it,
Mhm.
where
Mhm.
um, I'd have evil thoughts,
Mhm.
just like get in the closet and call him everything under the sun, or the times that I've cried to my friends,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
because we didn't manage this by ourselves.
Mhm.
We had a lot of people. Um, I say a lot, but we had a group and a core group of friends and people in our lives who have really poured into our relationship. So I even say the success of our relationship didn't just happen with the two of us, with the work of the two of
Mhm.
us. We had people who sat and listened and
Mhm.
cried, let me cry, let me vent, let me
Mhm.
dump, right?
Yeah.
And so I give just as much credit
Mhm.
to people who helped us and who did that.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to be acting like, "Oh, look at us. We just did all this."
I never get that from you. I never get that from you. And I think that's also a sign of maturity, also a sign of kindness. That I think as you said, you're like, wow, we're still doing this, and I
Mhm,
still like him, and he still likes me. This is pretty damn awesome. But
mhm,
I also know it didn't have to turn out this way. It could have turned out the other,
mhm,
and that I'm
mhm,
lucky and blessed that it did. And so as I think about that, I always, my thing that I want to start ending the show with is, what is the wisdom we have to share and the lessons we learned today? And for me, what I just heard you say was keeping the marriage together was part of a village, that you had folks there that were part of your village that helped you do that, that
mhm,
it was work. It
mhm.
wasn't just the rom com where, he asked you out on Valentine's Day and he bought you a car and a house, right?
Yeah,
And said,
yeah.
hey, come on, right? Right.
Mhm.
I heard you also say that you guys like each other.
Yeah.
You don't just love him, you like him,
Mhm,
and he likes
mhm,
you.
mhm.
And then I heard you say that we need to also make sure that when we think about Valentine's Day and any other day, that we shouldn't just be thinking about romantic love. We should be thinking about lifting up all the folks in our lives that we care about.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I appreciate you coming on with me, girl. This was the best. It was like us
I
sitting in the
love
kitchen chatting.
you know what? I love you, Tracy, and
I love you
I
too,
do
Beverly.
say, find you some Tracys in the world. That's what I tell people you need. That's it.
Woo.
When you say the village, people need to have people who will hold them up, lock
Mhm.
arms with them, go to battle with them,
Mhm.
or just let you be.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm,
I heard something today where someone said on a podcast, because I am a podcast junkie, where someone said, you gotta, what your close friends are. You know what their shit is. You know what it is. And you
mhm,
just gotta let them have their shit, right? Like we have a friend who's
mhm,
gonna be late to everything. She is
mhm.
going to be late. I have learned, it has taken me many years, that okay, I'm gonna go later than we said. I'm gonna take a book. She has so many incredible qualities.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna let the be late be a thing where I have steam coming out of my ears. I'm gonna work around that because she's worth it, you
Yep.
know?
Everything
Absolutely.
we
I
don't
love
stop
you.
growing. I love you too.
All right, babe. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.